Hey, I'm Larissa from Beekeeping Made Simple, and let's talk about beekeeping equipment. This is my third time getting started from scratch as a beekeeper. I started 13 years ago with 2 top bar hives, and I built it with scrap wood from a friend's house that he was renovating. And then I moved 5,000 miles away and started all over again with Langstroth style hives, which I personally just prefer a lot more. Now that we moved 5,000 miles again back to Pennsylvania, I'm starting from scratch. The first beehive I'm going to be working with for the year is a Vevor Beehive. They sent me one for free in exchange for making this video and showing you about it. You can buy them from their website. Their website is Vevor. You can find the link to these products in the video description. I'm going to show you what it looks like when it arrives, put it together, and then how to use it. The big one that they sent me was the thermal camera, and my husband's an electrician, so he's been stealing this from me constantly for our house as well as for work. The beehive comes in a box that's pretty small considering what it is. This is a 10 frame Langstroth style beehive. It is 2 deeps and 1 medium. Now this is a pretty standard way that a lot of beekeepers in the United States set up their beehives. You can do it lighter with 8 frames or do all medium boxes, but this is pretty standard, and this is how I chose to run my beehives. One, because it's fewer boxes when you have 10 frames versus 8 frame boxes. It does weigh more, but I am okay with the weight and I'm used to it. I've done it many times. And I'd rather just have fewer boxes and be able to fit more honey and for there to be more brood in the boxes. And I'm going to run 2 deep boxes so that there is, I don't have to do a different style of beekeeping in order to prevent swarming, and that there is enough room in the hive for all the brood, and especially in the springtime, that there is enough room for the bees to prevent them from swarming off. Now, when you get your hive, it's going to come in a pretty good sized box, but it is packed really well. They have lots of foam in there, plus cardboard corner things. Nothing was dented, damaged, scratched, or nicked when it arrived. This is a beeswax coated hive, and it is made from cedar wood. It's 0.74 inches thick, this wood, and this is really standard. Now, personally, I have mixed feelings about the beeswax coated hives. The farm I worked for, they had 4,000 hives, dipped their equipment in beeswax, a giant vat of it. They would dip the boxes in, and it is supposed to prolong the life of your beekeeping equipment. However, usually then don't paint it, and the beeswax then has to constantly, you have to rub more on because it rubs off. So it's a little bit easier to, I mean, it's more work to start to paint your hives, but then you set it and forget it. You know, it's like that for years until maybe you want to paint the joints again later. The beeswax is a little bit more maintenance constantly. If you're not sure what size boxes to get, or you want to make sure that you have everything, you want to make sure that you have the right frames for the right boxes and the right size foundation for the frames, then getting one of these kits makes it easy because they send everything to you. You want to buy one extra box later on or with it, fine, but you know that everything fits together. This one comes with 2 deep boxes. These are dovetail joints, which is nice. It's supposed to make the joints stronger. In theory, I've also done a rabbit joint when I've made my own beehives, and those lasted a long time. And this beehive also comes with windows. I assembled one window to show you. And then once it's all assembled, turn the little thing, and it comes with a couple sheets of acrylic. This window is nice for educational purposes. You want to take people out that aren't beekeepers to see your hives. But the bees do gunk these things up. And you can only see one side, a little bit of one frame on these. There is the hardware, which is really convenient. If you buy just the unassembled boxes from most beekeeping supply sites, it doesn't come with the hardware. But when you get the kits, it usually does come with the hardware. So it has all of the nails for assembling the boxes and the screws for the window. What you are going to need is your wood glue, screwdriver, hammer, and a hammer should be sufficient, but some kind of a rubber mallet can be nice for putting the boxes together when they are these dovetail joints. And you want an extra piece of wood so that when you're hammering those joints together, you're not damaging the boxes. I will say, when you are putting these acrylic pieces into your box, I recommend using just a handheld screwdriver as opposed to a screw gun, because it's really easy to crack these things. They are really thin. We have enough frames for all 3 boxes. This kit comes with an entrance reducer. There's the tiny little entrance, and then there's the medium-sized entrance, which is nice because it's a pretty easy, tiny little thing, but sometimes something that you forget when you're ordering your equipment separately. It comes with the foundation to put on your beehive. We have often the yellow is the color used in the medium frames, which is where the bees are going to be putting honey, and then black is a common color for the deep frames. So we have 20 of these and 10 of the yellow ones. The black is preferred by most beekeepers because when you're trying to find eggs, it's easier to spot that little white egg over the black foundation than yellow. You do want to throw in, when you're ordering these things, some green foundation. That's for drones, and it's helpful to have some drone foundation, even if you don't care if your beehive is going to be producing males for the sake of adding their DNA to the gene pool of the honeybee community in your area. It's a really nice, easy way to see how many varroa mites are in your hive, and also give a place for the varroa mites to breed so that your worker bees are healthy and the varroa mites are focusing on feeding off of your drone pupa. Last but not least, we have the tops and the bottoms. We have one solid bottom board, one inner cover, a queen excluder, and a telescoping outer cover, just a fancy word for the lid or the top of the beehive. Those outer covers is what I recommend over the cheaper migratory lids you'll find. It's more of an all-season kind of cover. If you're curious about some of these parts, I have links in the video description about queen excluders, when to use them, when I like to use them, when I don't, and inner covers and different size boxes. One other thing that they sent me, which since this is December and it is pretty chilly out, it's been in the 30s all week. This is popular new gadget by a lot of beekeepers, and I am not a gadget person, but this was something that I was interested in purchasing as a newbie to the cold weather, or newbie enough since it's been over a decade. This is a thermal imager, thermal camera, and so this is what it looks like. This thing is actually a little bit more expensive than this entire beehive. So this beehive is a little over $200 currently on their website. The link to the website is in the video description to where you can find this particular beehive. And it is pretty comparable or a little bit on the lower end in price to other wooden style beehives. Now this camera is a little bit more expensive, just slightly, than this entire beehive. But this is a popular new gadget that a lot of beekeepers are using. And essentially when you're using this is telling you whether your bees are still alive in the wintertime in the beehive, and the heat they're producing. You get an idea of how big the cluster is and where the cluster is, which is really great because that'll tell you whether they're still at the bottom eating their honey or whether they're up at the top. If Maybe you need to check on it and see if you need to start adding food up there, if they've been up at the top for a while. And so if you've seen my video about the Vevor extractor, their directions were pretty on the low side. And the installation and the assembly and stuff. But these directions are way better for assembling the beehive, how to put everything together, all the parts that are included, as well as the thermal camera. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to assemble the beehive, and then we're going to go through how all these work and bring them outside for you. So let's go. All right, let's do this. Let's put our beehive together. First, we have our bottom board, and that goes on whatever you have as a hive stand. Pallets, cinder blocks, 2x4s, buy a hive stand, whatever floats your boat. Then you're going to put your boxes. Now, when assembling these, make sure you use lots of wood glue. Comes with nails in the package. And most importantly, I have done this once, and only once did it take for me to learn my lesson. Make sure the panels are all facing the right direction. Handholds want to be like this, not only so that they all line up and you can actually use your handholds, but more importantly, so that the shelf inside is all right here so that you can actually hang your frames in there. We have 10 frames with foundation to hang in the hive. I only assembled one of the 3 boxes because that's all I'm going to be starting with when I get my bees. But as your bees fill up this first box, and you have 2 or 3 empty frames, and by empty I mean the bees haven't started to put anything in it, such as honey, pollen, the queen's not laying in it. There might be honeycomb drawn out, but there's nothing there. If you have like 3 empty frames with nothing in the comb, or if you have just 1 frame that's just totally empty, nothing, no honeycomb, nothing inside, that's when you're going to add your second box. And the same thing for the second box. When that second box is 70% full, then add your medium box on top. Once you have 2 brood boxes, that's usually when the beekeeper will put a queen excluder on top. I personally don't use queen excluders unless I really find that I need to. It's one of those things that I like to have a couple on hand in case I need it, but I don't automatically put it on my beehive. Then you have your inner cover, and finally the outer cover. And finally, we have our entrance reducer. When you're first putting your bees in the hive, you're going to want the entrance to be very small because there's not a lot of bees, but there is going to be honey. And there might be wasps or other honeybees looking to steal from them. And so a small entrance means that there's not a lot of space that that the bees have to guard. And again, 2 more boxes, but you don't have to build and prepare those boxes and frames to start. Because it's going to be weeks or over a month before you're going to even need that first box. In addition to a starter kit like this, I would get 3 to 5 sheets of the green foundation, which is for drones. 1 additional honey super. So if you're getting this kit, 1 more medium-sized box plus the 10 frames and 10 sheets of foundation to go in that box. And 1 mouse guard. They're metal, and mice will chew through the wood to make the opening big enough for them to get through. So you're going to want a metal mouse guard or make your own. Now let's try out that thermal imaging camera. And what this does is it just tells you the temperature. There is a few things that you can do with this and program, and the instructions are really easy to follow and straightforward. But when it comes down to it, what beekeepers are using this for is in the cold months. You start to worry about your bees, you want to know where they are, make sure that they're still alive, and so you can use one of these to figure that out. It comes with a SD card, and with that SD card you can take pictures if you like. You push the center button and go to the measurement. You can turn on the center spot. You can turn on the hot spot, and you can turn on the cold spot. And that's pretty helpful. Then exit out of that. You now have your center spot, and it also automatically tells you where the hot spot and the cold spot is in here. We were actually using this in our house to see where the drafty spots are. So now when we point the camera to the beehive, what you'll see is that there is a hot spot in the back where the sun's been shining on that fence back there, and that there is a hot spot right down in the lower left hand side, and that is where the heat is right now inside the beehive. This camera can also help you, just like we used in our house with the beehive, to show you where the weak spots are in your equipment and where your hive is going to be losing heat. And you'll see that this isn't going to tell you the interior temperature of the beehive, but when you're using this in the winter time, you're not looking for like a 90-some degree cluster. What you're looking for is to see that the beehive is warmer than the exterior temperature. It'll also tell you, it can give you an idea of the general size of the cluster and where the cluster is in the beehive. You can save the photos and download them to the computer. This one comes with an SD card. And this can also be helpful if you're looking to do a cutout, which is when you take a beehive that is in something like, say, a tree, and cut this established hive out of from where they are. This will help you figure out where that hive is in the tree so that you know where to start looking around and digging for them. There are other ways to be able to tell whether your cluster is alive, and on those warm sunny days it's way more obvious because you will see live bees coming and going. However, when there is snow on your hive, one of these is especially good for people who are, maybe just really curious what's going on in their hive and really tempted to look inside. Now, they say you can knock on the hive, but that isn't great to do when your bees are clustered up. You really don't want to agitate them, wake them up, get them out of that cluster. Also, when there's a lot of snow on your hive, you want to not, when there's snow on our car, we want to go brush it off. But you want to leave that snow on your beehive because that will help insulate it. So you don't want to go brush all that snow off the top and the sides of the hive. You want to leave that on and keep your bees insulated from the snow. So one of these things can be great, especially for those overeager beekeepers that are really curious to see what's going on with their bees. So those are the Vevor products. The hive is very similar to other hives that I've worked with. The only downside that I have seen to the hive I'm not a huge fan of is the window, which is something that people love to see but can be a weak spot in the winter months. And the joints aren't as tight as other dovetail joints that I've gotten from other beehives. So you're going to want to put a lot of glue in there and make sure that you get them nice and tight together, as tight as you can. Because the fewer weak spots you have in the beehive, the better that your bees will be insulated. Oh, and on the topic of insulation, if you're going to get one of those bee cozies and heavily insulate your hive, one of these things probably isn't really going to help you. Now, if you take that cozy off when you have the warmer days, that's fine. But this is going to tell you the outside temperature of the hive. The outside temperature of your hive is going to be warmer if you have an active cluster in there. But it's not going to be, like 98 degrees. So those cozies are going to make this thing not work so well. Thanks for watching. Check out my Beekeeper's Diary series because I'm going to be using these products in that series. I'm going to put a hive of bees. I think while I'm getting cold, man, I have such a wimp when it comes to the cold these days. I'm going to be getting a few packages of bees, and one of those packages of bees, or a nuke, whichever I'm going to get, is going to go into this beaver hive. And we'll see how it does over the spring, summer, and winter months here in Pennsylvania. My grandmother grew up in Western Ukraine, was Poland at the time when she lived there. She told me that they took a sled to school. And I know there's that story that people say that they walked, all these miles through 10 feet of snow, but I honestly believed her when she said that they had a sled She had, I think, 3 brothers and sisters. I haven't met all of them. They didn't all come to this country. And they they got a lot of snow. So trying to summon the Bobshi in me and suck it up and deal with this, because she dealt with much colder temperatures than this 32 degrees we have right here in Chester County. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you're notified about the next videos I have up. I'm going to do some that are a little bit more uncut with me out with the bees come the springtime when I have bees in these hives. And there's also a link in the video description to subscribe to my newsletter if you want to be notified that way when we have new videos. I have an online beekeeping course if you'd like to learn along with me in pre-recorded classes, and it includes mentorship, so you can email me when you have questions, and I am here to help you out not only with your beekeeping questions, but questions related to your bees and your situation. See you next time.